Gameplay is king. A good story can't save a bad game. And while there is truth to that, it does make me wonder. Gameplay, the actual reason we keep coming back. Storytelling for me has always had a weird place in gaming. It's needed, but it's often treated as a lesser part of the experience below gameplay, music, and even animation. It sort of reminds me of this scene in Game of Thrones where Tywin Lannister is speaking with Jaime Lannister, and Tywin Lannister is a very rich and powerful man who has started a war for his youngest son named Tyrion because he was kidnapped by a rival family. But he hates his son. He hates this kid. Tywin hates Tyrion. And Jaime wanted to know why he was starting a war for someone he despised. Well, because
I didn't realize you placed such a high value on my brother's life.
He's a Lannister. Might be the lowest of the Lannisters, but he's one of us.
And that's how I feel that people take storytelling in a lot of video games. A lot of people will say it doesn't matter. Tyrion Lannister is sort of how people treat storytelling in video games. It's always been treated as part of the family, but the lowest part of the family. The lowest part. It is understandable. Us video gamers, we have to have a strong gameplay systems to keep us engaged. After all, video games are extremely engaging. It is not a passive consumption. It has to have strong systems. It does. There's no doubt about that. After all, no gameplay means if there's no gameplay, there means that there's no video games and it just will not be played. The consumer will not play that game. So we need those systems to stay with the game, and rightfully so. Let's use some examples. If we look at some of the most popular games that exist today, especially if you look at some of those most popular games would be Fortnite, Minecraft, and even Counter-Strike. They got live service that don't have strong storytelling. Some huge games that have had huge cultural influence in the gaming industry, among many other popular live service games that don't have a strong sense of lore or storycraft. These games all have had massive success when it comes to sales, longevity, and just time consumed on these video games. These games do show that when you do have a solid system in those games, they can succeed with weak to no storytelling. But I do think that there is more storytelling in these games than people let on. For example, back to Minecraft. Minecraft, similar to Dark Souls, tends to rely heavily on environmental storytelling, where the player engages with the world that they are in. They are told nothing about the world, and they have to come to their own conclusions and their own imagination as to what has happened in that world or what they believed happened in that world. Minecraft does this, and I think a game that does this extremely well is Dark Souls. Extremely well. I think that is one of the most ideal examples of environmental storytelling. Another example would be Fortnite. And Fortnite also uses another form of storytelling. Fortnite tends to rely on something called community storytelling. Or actually what I just learned when I was looking it up just a few minutes ago, it's called emergent transmedia storytelling. That's basically where they tell their story through events and seasons. And instead of having a narrative where there's only one person about the narrative, it's essentially the story of the community and what the community is doing as a whole in this story. Let's get to the last one that I brought up. Of those three, Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is actually one that doesn't really have any lore or storytelling. It is pure, just strong gameplay systems, and basically the story is nothing more than terrorists versus counter-terrorists, and they're just going pew 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 on each other, pretty much. So yes, a game can survive without any real storytelling, and I think Counter-Strike is a major proof of evidence of that. But I do think there's a reason why Counter-Strike is so popular as it is, even without it, and I think it has less to do about the gameplay, it has to do more about mastery. But I will be talking about that in another video in the future. So with that being said, I do think that gameplay can get us through a game, but it's the stories that stick with us. When you're done playing that video game, people aren't going to be like, oh yeah, oh man, that jump mechanic, it's so good, dude. Oh, it was the best jump mechanic ever. Oh, yeah, and your friend's like, oh yeah, dude, it was great. I love pressing the A button, the best. But don't really talk like that. In real life, like, we do not speak like that about a video game. It's the things that we talk about with our friends and our family members are the stories and the characters. When I was a child, my parents got me the PS1, and one of the stories that completely enthralled me in the story was Final Fantasy IX. I loved Final Fantasy IX. It had this interesting world where it was medieval times where you had kings and queens, mages and knights all protecting, their kingdom. but it also had airships, like steam engine airships with modern factories. And I just love that world. The gameplay itself, I mean, as a kid, I liked it as a kid, but really objective, the gameplay was only kind of average. It was a little grindy. There was a lot of waiting while you waited for your characters so you could do another action in the fighting. And I was okay with that because I wanted to know what was happening in this world and happening to the characters that were living in this world. What was going to happen to Vivi in his short lifespan now that he has learned when he was made in a literal factory. Or is it Vivi? I always said Vivi, but I think it's Vivi. Where is Zidane from and why is he a thief today? Why does Dagger, Princess Garnet in the story, want to be kidnapped by Zidane? What happened to Freya's lover and her people in Burmecia? And it is those questions that kept me going. And I think it's stories that really actually keep us writing fan fiction. If you look at YouTube comments and if you look around Reddit, I'm not saying you won't find people talking about builds. You absolutely will. But long term, after all the builds have been found, after all the builds have been made, or at least all the good ones, the only thing really people left are talk about are the characters, the stories. Because nobody's going to remember game mechanics 10 to 20 years from now. People just don't. People don't remember the Pacific. That's what sticks to people. It's not Joe sneaking around the map, killing guards and building shivs at the bench. It's Joe killing 3 good doctors and betraying the human race to save his adopted daughter in one selfish moment. It's not learning that new ability and equipping the strongest weapons in the game to beat a boss. It's Yuna and her crew learning that Yevon's teachings are all lies. It's not the enemy attack patterns where they leave themselves open on the 3rd attack that people remember. It's Gustav's final moment to protect Mel. One thing I have actually learned when I was writing this is that gameplay might be king. And actually, I would disagree that it might be king. I think gameplay is the king. Gameplay is the king, but storytelling is the queen. She is the queen and the heart of the kingdom. And let me tell you, when these two hold hand to hand together, that's when when a video game goes from being good to being something special. And I think when you look at some of the greatest games that have ever been made, you always find these two holding hands to hand together. Usually you'll find them mixing the story and the gameplay together. Knights of the Old Republic, any story, Expedition 33 today. It upsets me whenever I hear like a corporation person or whatever you want to call them talks about how gamers just don't care about stories anymore, even though that's just not true because we're social creatures. We're literally wired for stories. We're literally involved. Our evolution for storytelling was made for our survival. Like storytelling was literally involved as a tool for our survival. It can help us find danger. Oh, mommy, what happened to our uncle? Oh, the story is that he got grabbed into the river by crocodiles in the middle of the night, and you tell some gory story about how her uncle got dragged in. Moral of the story is don't go near the river at that time. I don't know what I mean by that, but point is that stories can preserve knowledge and allows us to pass on that knowledge. Before we had artificial intelligence, internet, or even books. Yes, there was once a time we didn't have books. Stories can bond us with each other because it allows us to let our guards down and be open to new ideas and ask questions that we normally be too afraid to ask. Stories are even possible to persuade people to understand new ideas. And this is why which kind of saddens me with Dragon Age Veilguard. And it's one of the reasons why I think the game completely failed. I think that game failed not because of its gameplay mechanics. I think the gameplay was middle. Definitely many games out there that are much worse than the gameplay of Dragon Age. It is not the worst game in Dragon Age. Dragon Age Veilguard doesn't have the worst gameplay. It just doesn't. It's not the best. By no means. It's not. I'm not even going to try to protect that it's even great by any means because it really wasn't. It wasn't enough to keep me going. I do think what killed it was the story, though. I think the exposition writing being too on the nose. Not to mention, there was kind of, in my opinion, they're kind of forcing the moral of stories and trying to get players to understand. Like I said, stories are a great way for people to let down their guards and be willing to listen to other people's perspectives and ideas and opinions. But when you try to force it on them, sort of like what Veilguard did with Tasha, it doesn't end well. Because at that point, it's not a heart anymore. It's artificial. It's an artificial machine. You don't need gameplay to survive, but you definitely need stories. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is storytelling is significantly more important, but you gotta have one. Games with strong stories are going to have, they're going to have longer shelf life. And I think you're going to see as game companies realize how important stories are, is that when you tell a great story, the longevity of that game, especially if it's single player, can last for years. Usually story playing games usually are consumed and they die off. And that's just gonna be true for any game. Or you can look at Baldur's Gate 3, which I didn't even talk about that one. I didn't even bring that up with this story. That has a great story, and look how many people are playing that game. Anyone who tells you that stories don't matter, they've forgotten the importance of stories. Gameplay is what carries us through the game, but stories, that's what we talk about. It's not the aim mechanics or the level design we remember years later. It's the characters, choices, and the emotions that we feel along the way. And when we're told a great story, we get to learn a little bit more about ourselves. What was your guys? So guys, tell me what games stuck with you over the years. Tell me what were some of your favorite stories. I told you guys Final Fantasy 9 was one of my favorites. I would love to hear one of yours. Like, tell me, please do. I want to hit the comment section and be like, yeah, this story is the sickest, man. I know like Red Dead Redemption was supposed to be pretty good one. I've never played that one, but yeah, just tell me any one and why you might have liked it. What moments hit you the hardest? Anyways, if you guys like this stuff, want to make more videos like this, so make sure to hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff if you want to see more. And I will see you guys later. Peace.